By the end of today's episode, you'll learn all about mastering the American English accent to help you book more roles in the United States. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Bentsen, and today I've got Lloyd Moss here, and he's going to be sharing some tips and tricks for actors moving to the USA from non-native English-speaking countries. Some of the things we'll be discussing include the types of roles where accent is and isn't critical, how to overcome common accent-related challenges, and some specific daily exercises you can use to refine your American accent. Thanks for being here, Lloyd. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Martin. I really appreciate you being here, and hello to everyone listening out here. Um, I'm a musician first. I teach guitar, piano, and most recently, for the last 5 years, I've taught voice. And I just sort of fell into teaching foreign accent reduction, or another way to call it would be American accent enhancement. So I work with clients all over the world via Zoom, and I help several who have big YouTube channels grow their followings to be more communicative with an American audience.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, I do have a number of questions for you. I know people who are listening to this. There's a lot of people on my email list and who listen to this podcast who are from other countries and trying to get their acting career started here. So this is perfect for a lot of people. I'd like to ask you, how important is accent adaptation for actors working in the USA? And are there specific types of roles where accent is more or less important?
Yeah, the first thing I want to just mention is the elephant on the podcast is Arnold Schwarzenegger, Selma Hayek, maybe Penelope Cruz, and Sofia Vergara from Modern Family. Those people's accents are their brands, and those people don't need it because that's their accent is part of of who they are. And yeah, so that's the first thing. In terms of accent adaptation for actors in the U.S., it's really important to be able to switch on to an American accent, and if the role requires it. Um, and also, equally as important, I think, being able to thinking about the inflections of where certain words and syllables are accented. Americans say things differently, and they even when they're communicating with their friends or with the crew, there's a lot more emotion. Sometimes someone who isn't from the U.S. might say, "Hi, how are you, Martin? Good to see you," right? And if someone said that to me, I would think, "Are you okay?" Because in America, we sort of over dramatize things. We want even someone we barely know. We want to say, "Hey, Martin, how are you?" And it's the same thing if you're talking to a director or a fellow actor. A director wants to know that their input is being understood. And the more you're able to think about the emotion and way Americans speak, the more effective you're going to be with that role you get and getting future roles as well.
So what I'm hearing is there's two sides of it in terms of importance. One is when you're booking the roles it's themselves and playing the character, but also to make sure that you are communicating properly and making the director feel comfortable working with you, that you're understanding what they're telling you. You have to understand not only the English language, but also the way in which things are typically spoken so that people can very quickly understand and the communication process is easier on a busy, crazy set. Is that right?
Absolutely, Martin. And you're a director yourself, and you know how there's so many there's time constraints, budget constraints, light constraints. One of my friends who teaches acting at UCLA was telling me a story that one of his first jobs, he was on set and he was observing Mel Brooks direct an actor who was from this country. I think she was from France, and he was trying to get her to understand a certain inflection. And he worked with her 18 takes, and it just he didn't have time to do a 19th, and he had to replace her. And he loved the actress, but he couldn't. He didn't have time. So it's a shorthand that people want and who are in charge or who coworkers want as well.
Interesting. So it definitely is. clearly very, very important. But you did mention that there's certain actors, you mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger and some
Yeah,
others who sort of use their accent almost as their brand. Do you have any thoughts around that for actors who
yeah.
maybe don't actually have a brand yet, people who are still relatively new and starting? Is it possible for them to build an entire brand around an accent, or do they need to figure this stuff out and focus on their American accent first? What's your thoughts around that?
It's a great question, Martin, and it's a little bit of both. We have to understand that someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger had a career as a bodybuilder, so he had some brand awareness before he started. And someone like Sofia Vergara from Modern Family, or Salma Hayek, or Penelope Cruz, they were huge in their country, in their respective home countries before they came here. So if you have a lot of success in another country, absolutely, use that. You can use that, your home your the accent that you have, to your advantage. But I guarantee you, if Sofia Vergara was hired by Christopher Nolan or Steven Spielberg and he wanted her to speak with an American accent, she would get one faster than you could say Academy Award.
Nice. My next question here is, what would you say are some common challenges that actors from non-English speaking countries typically face when they're trying to adjust their accents for American audiences?
Yeah,
And how can they overcome those challenges?
that's another great question. You're full of them today, Martin. It's good. Very specific. I'm noted specifically. A lot of times the word the is very important. Whereas in another country, it might say, I'm going to table, I'm going to chair. And really understanding that we don't say that here. We say, I'm going to the movies, I'm going to sit on the table. So the word the is important. Another little tip is when the precedes a vowel, like the umbrella, the actor, the European consulate, anytime the precedes a word with a vowel, it's really pronounced the, and then it would sound like thee, because it just flows off the tongue better. And we're just conditioned to hear the umbrella, not the umbrella.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so many subtleties, and as someone who has a 4-year-old and am trying to teach him the proper way to speak and to use certain words, you don't really, as a person born in the United States and growing up with this language, you don't realize how ridiculously complicated the American language is.
It is. It is. And one of the things that's really interesting, because with my teaching guitar and piano after COVID, everyone did the lessons on Zoom during COVID. But now everyone wants to do in person. I understand that, but for accent reduction, it's almost advantageous to do it on Zoom, because I could see the person's face up close, and it's just a little less stressful when you're looking at someone on a screen, as opposed to being 6 inches from their mouth. And phonetics and mouth placement is so important. And you mentioned a 4-year-old. I'm teaching a 5-year-old ukulele, and he'll say, um, I use my tongue to press on the ukulele, and I'm saying, no, we don't say that. And the mom was fine with I always have the mom like sitting in with me, and I was correcting the kid, and I was showing him how to stick his tongue out for the th sound, thumb. So, and that's what I do a lot with my accent reduction students. Is they're used to saying, some people from the Eastern Europe, they might say, I'm going someplace, and they have problems saying, they have issues saying ing, I'm going to go someplace. Or they'll have problems with the t's. They might go, I'll sit down, as opposed to I'm sitting down. And sometimes when someone's in a session with me, I'll over exaggerate it. I'll over exaggerate how I would say you're sitting down, and really spell out, really work on each syllable sometimes, because I want to over dramatize it, so it just gets into their subconscious, and it becomes their speaking with an American accent becomes more natural. That's the goal.
Interesting. I want to ask if you have any effective techniques or exercises that actors can practice daily to help improve their American English pronunciation.
I have a great one, and it's free. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I would suggest any actor to go on YouTube and look at their favorite American actor, whether it's Brad Pitt or Ed Norton, or let's see, name a favorite female actor of yours in the United States. I was going to say Kate Blanchett, but that's Australia.
I just
Julia
I've been watching all of the Alien movies again with
Sigourney
Sigourney
Weaver.
Weaver. Yeah.
There you go. Or Julianne Moore speaks wonderfully. Or Meryl Streep, of course, when she's speaking just with no accent. And what you could do is you could hit show transcript on any YouTube video and you'll get a printout or you do a screenshot. And then what I would do is take your phone and read it back. Read that back to your phone for the to the voice record memo. And then when you're done, just listen to it back. Listen to yourself. Your ear is going to be your own best teacher, and you'll be able to help yourself a lot with that. It's not going to be complete, but it's you have to know how you hear yourself. There's a saying, and it's true, John Lennon didn't like the sound of his own voice, and most people don't, but you have to get used to it. Actors, I'm sure you've worked with more actors than I have, is when you're watching a video monitor, they have to be comfortable seeing themselves on video to improve the performance that you want from them.
Exactly. I teach that as one of the best ways to improve your own acting ability. In fact, a program that I run, this Uplevel Your Acting course, is all about you record your monologue and you have to go back and watch it and analyze it through certain lenses, looking for specific things. And I also teach that if you analyze it on your own, while you can definitely catch a lot of things and it is a little bit easier, you go into some sort of hypercritical mode if you're sitting next to somebody analyzing it. And that's like the ultimate test. And you'll really notice every little thing if you're sitting next to another person playing it back.
There's a really famous story that I heard Quentin Tarantino talk about. It's that when he writes a script, he invites friends over and he just wants to read it in front of them himself. He doesn't do a read through, but he just knows that just by them being there, he's going to be more self aware of what he needs to fix.
Interesting.
And the other thing is, I wanted to say, more to the point what you said about hearing what we both talked about recording yourself and hearing it back. It's important when you hear it back is to shut off your phone, put it on airplane mode, go be with no distractions, no TV, and just listen to yourself. And you're not you if you've never done it before, like you said, you might not like it the first time, but you have to. We're in a business where you have to be not hypercritical, but open to feedback from your open to feedback. Yeah, to be open to feedback from a director, from your coworkers, from a casting director, from a producer. You're going to read in front of a variety of different people before you get that role sometimes.
Nice. Yeah. No, that's so true. It is interesting. A lot of when you do freelancing, let's say, and acting is a form of freelancing, right? Most times, if let's pretend that you're a photographer and you can take photos and then you show the pictures to the person and they give you the feedback. They're like, "Oh, I don't like the way this is," or "Can you adjust that?" Right? And you get that feedback. A lot of times with actors, on the other hand, because it's all based on auditions and casting directors are typically too busy to give you feedback, it's like you're going out there and doing the work and then you're not hearing the feedback from people. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it is so important because the only way to really get better is to get feedback. And unless you're going to work with, let's say, an accent coach like yourself or some other person who can, like a class where they give you live feedback, you're generally not going to get feedback unless you watch it yourself and force yourself to go through that. So it is really important.
And I just want to I just want to pivot just a little bit for a second on that, on the idea that you might not get feedback. I have a lot of students, whether they're music students or acting students with accent reduction. And your first audition, maybe the casting director is looking at their phone or they're just putting their hand on their cheek because they came from the dentist. You really can't take any of that personally. And like you said, you're not going to get feedback. And that's why it's even more important to get your own feedback and to hear yourself repeat the lines before you go do the audition.
Excellent. Now, my last primary question here for you today is what advice would you give to actors who are aiming to maintain the authenticity in their performances of themselves while also working on accent modification? Like, how can they balance both effectively?
So are you asking me how could they give an emotional performance that's true to themselves at the same time focusing having the American accent that sounds natural?
Yeah, it's sort of like, I mean, everybody has a different brand, right? As an actor, you base your brand on your personality, or at least the way that I teach it, you base it on your personality and you combine that with the types of characters that you can play best. So
Sure.
if you are trying to focus on, let's say, a natural American traditional type accent, but you are from a country that's non-native English speaking, how do you make sure that you feel like you are capturing your own brand or your own personality while modifying your accent? Is there a way to do that? If so, how? Or if not, what are your thoughts around that? What do you recommend for actors?
I have two-word answer for that, and I'll expand on it. It's vacuum cleaner. Okay. And someone once told me, one of my students was an actor, was telling me that they're acting. I'm not an actor, but she was telling me that her acting coach says, learn the lines while you're vacuuming. So it's so effortless that you could focus on the emotion when you're on set. And what I mean by vacuum cleaners, don't go by vacuum cleaner if you live in a small apartment, but do something else. Walk the dog, take a walk, or do something where it's not the primary thing, so it's effortless. And then record that too while you're walking your dog, while you're fixing your car or something like that, and make that's how it could get more natural. At the same time, everyone needs a coach to sound, if they're not from America, to have an American accent. It's you can do it yourself, but it could take many years. Some of the Peter Finch, who was in a movie called Network on in the '70s, and there was an actress who was on Fringe, who was from Australia or New Zealand, I believe. They were both highly trained in their respective countries, and they probably had very good coaches to at the universities to work on an American accent. So they didn't need it. In fact, like the director Sidney Lumet didn't believe that Peter Finch could, or the casting director of Network didn't believe that Peter Finch could do an American accent, so we had to do a videotape. Back then it was video before FaceTime and Zoom, and prove to them that he could do an American accent. But because he was from the United Kingdom, I'm sure he was very highly trained from his university there or his studies.
It's interesting because at least in my belief, any skill that you're working to develop, whether it's changing your accent or just improving your acting technique in general, or if you're a photographer trying to get better at lighting or whatever, right? It's always going to take a certain amount of conscious effort that will take away from the natural way that you're able to do things. Like for
Yeah.
instance, if you're trying to figure out how to position the lights, you're probably not going to be easily able to bring out your natural personality when you're interacting with a client to take their
Yeah.
photo. And so there's definitely a lot to be said for the idea of having patience with yourself, working to improve it, and then almost one thing that I've said to actors actually in that class that I was mentioning earlier, the up level your acting, is sometimes what happens is if an actor really wants to stretch themselves and improve their performance, they may need to go way overboard and do something totally different. And then they kind of just pull it back, and it's way easier to just sort of get natural and come off as more natural in a good performance that was better than where it was previously. So I think that what you're saying about the whole idea, the vacuum cleaner, you sort of doing it until it becomes unconscious, and then you can kind of your accent, you don't even have to think about it consciously anymore, and then at that point it becomes really easy to make sure that your own personality and your own brand shines through.
Absolutely. And the more it's repetition, whether you're doing reps for working out or you're practicing for accent reduction, or a cinematographer lighting a set. I've had some cinematographers as guitar students, and I said to them, I said, I'm sure with your 20 years of experience, I'm sure you could go into a scene or a set that you've never seen before and think, okay, now I know where to move the lights. And you don't even have to think because it's so intuitive. It's exactly what you said, Martin. The more you do it, the more intuitive it will become.
Nice. Awesome. Well, this has been some fantastic information for actors who are looking to work on their American English accent. How can actors get in touch with you if they have questions about this or they want to work with you on accent coaching?
Well, I'm going to tell you the answer to those questions, but I'm going to mention also that anyone who's listening to this podcast, if they mention Martin's podcast, they will get a free complimentary session with me, as long
Wow,
as they mention
that
your
is so
podcast.
nice of you. A free session to anybody who listens to this. Is there a date expiration for it? Because this podcast
Yeah,
could be available for quite a long time.
1 year. 1 year. It would
One
be
year
one
from
year.
now? Okay,
Okay.
so one
Yeah.
year from the date that this is published, which is likely going to be in mid-July 2024. Okay.
Right. Yeah. What were the other two questions you were
So,
asking
no,
me? I'm
just how
sorry.
can actors get in touch with
Yeah.
you if
Yeah.
they have questions or want to work with you?
Sure. Yeah, I encourage anyone, even if they don't have time for a free session, if they don't want a free session, please email me. I love actors. I love movies. When everyone else was playing soccer when they were 7 years old, I was either playing guitar or going to the movies by myself. So I love movies. I respect actors so much. I respect to all you actors out there. I really respect what you do. And I know how much hard work it is. So please, the best way to contact me is email me first. And I'll spell it out. It's rockpiano@me.com. It's no dashes, ROCK piano, one word, at me, M as in mother, E as in Edward.com. And yeah, please feel free to email me on anything we've talked about here, or on anything with regard to accent reduction. And then if you want a complimentary phone, I would either do a complimentary session or complimentary, like 15-minute phone advice on accent reduction. And once I get your email, I'm happy to furnish my phone number. And you can call me directly or text me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Lloyd. This was fantastic. I have a good feeling that you're going to get some people reaching out to you for
Can't wait.
your free consult because
Can't wait.
it's so nice. So, yeah, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on starting an acting career in the United States, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called How to Get Acting Work in the USA for Non-Residents, which is episode number 29. I promise you'll learn a ton and have a much deeper understanding of how the visa process works. Check it out again, episode 29, How to Get Acting Work in the USA for Non-Residents on the Actors Career Compass.